First thing I want to do is I want to highlight the ID News. And how many of you have been enjoying your ID News? Have you been enjoying it? That's not near enough of you, which tells me you're not reading your emails. All right, we are putting out a bi-weekly newsletter now, and you can see it on the screen. And Paul has been putting some fabulous articles in there, guys. If you want to know about what's in IDNutrition, you want to know the power of that, this is a great way for you to get an in-depth article from Paul. And so what I want to do, I wanted first off to highlight the fact that he's doing it, since some of you don't know about it. These are the articles that came out of there. So let's talk about these three things, Paul, just briefly. But let's start with the omegas. So why do we need fish oil?
Well, it's a wonderful source that we use for omega-3s, and the body is constructed really to have a balance of omega-6s, omega-3s, the essential fatty acids. And God made it to be a 1-to-1 ratio. Omega-6s would be all your grain oils, safflower, cottonseed, corn, and of course omega-3s would be from flaxseed or from fish oil. So when he made it 1-to-1, that was where we'd get a fair amount of omega-6s and a fair amount of omega-3s. The American diet today, the standard American diet, we call it the SAD diet, is 25-to-1 omega-6s to omega-3s. So what does that do? Well, it throws you way out of balance, obviously, by 25 times or 2,500 times, and gives you and a lot of that is not because we're just eating a lot more omega-6s, which we are in all our processed foods. And when I grew up, and all you guys were yet to be born, they were telling us all the great value of vegetable oil and Crisco and some of the vegetable-based oils and foods, where in fact they're really not that healthy. At the same time, processed farming, corporate farming, we're getting a lot less omega-3s. So now there's danger, people worried about fish, about the kind of content of mercury, PCBs, and things in fish, that the fish oil is what people are really relying on. Now, our fish oil is, most times your doctor or you'd see recommended is the 1,000 milligram capsule, the real big guy. We call it a 20 oblong capsule. And that has in it...
We call it hard to swallow.
Yeah, hard to swallow. But what's important is not the size of it, but what the concentration of fish oil is in it. It's 180, 120, so when the doctor says, or your friend says, take a fish oil, you really want to know what the concentration is, because the higher the concentration is, the more EPA, DHA you're getting, the more omega-3 you're getting. So our capsule is not only smaller, it's about 700 milligrams. So much easier to ingest, to swallow. It has 250, roughly 192 milligrams of EPA DHA, which is 50% stronger than what you'll find at retail. And then also we add, and have added it for years, mixed tocopherols to it. Now remember that's a vitamin E, natural vitamin E, that prevents the fish oil from getting rancid. Because in many of your fish oil bottles, 2 weeks after you open it up, it becomes oxidized if they don't have any antioxidant added. So we add 11 units of vitamin E to it, which is very expensive to do, but that's why ours doesn't come up. So the value of it, smaller capsule, more concentration, vitamin E added to it, and of course it's replacing, and in your questionnaire, whenever you're checking off that your fish intake is very low, you have maybe some inflammatory problems, this will be one of the choices will come up, will be 1 or 2 of our fish oils. So that's the value of it. It's a great anti-inflammatory. We're hearing, and what's beautiful, Scott, about this visit for me is in the launch, very few had taken the product yet. And when people ask me, they say, isn't it great to kind of see the software being launched, the program being launched, the packets being sold? And that's all great. But I know where I get kind of a warm heart is hearing from you guys what the results are. And I've heard things like moving rotator cuff, hips that no longer hurt, a golfer Matt that had problems with his right angle, I think. Matt, you couldn't turn on it. All of those within 3 to 4 weeks are getting this reduced inflammatory response, and they're feeling a better health result.
We will be taking an exit exam on this particular session. We're leaving some copious notes.
You got it.
Paul, on omegas, let's talk about, and because it makes me think about, because people normally take them at the wrong time of day. So let's talk about chrono dosing, because it comes into play with omegas. So talk about that a little bit and why we do it.
Well, years ago, I became a student of chronobiology, or chronopharmacology, and that is really looking at the right, chrono meaning, we use C-H-R-O-N-O, but chronos is Greek for clock, meaning what time of day should you take a nutrient or a medication. Now, pharma is starting to move this way, the pharmaceutical companies, but in nutrition, I've done this for about 12 years now, and found that if we can match the dosage up with this unique hospital packaging machine that we use with the body's circadian rhythms, meaning the time of day that the body's really looking for this, then it would be the perfect match. Because if you could, all the other quality points, concentration, where we get things made, but personalizing the formula, but if we could personalize it even further and give you the right nutrient at the right time of day, it would be that extra tweak that makes us better. So looking at when we give the liver product, if, for example, you can use this a lot, is we put it always in the PM packet or the dinner packet, because the liver is really detoxifying between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So why give it in the morning? And it would still have some value, but we're giving N-acetylcysteine or glutathione or milk thistle products that nourish the liver. Why not give it when the liver needs it most, or closest to it? We talk about the fish oil and arthritis, that we really have the timing. People that have rheumatoid arthritis generally have discomfort more in the morning because their cortisol levels are low overnight or reducing, they're low in the morning. So we give the anti-inflammatory and the fish oil at the dinner dose. So it's available overnight for them in the morning. If we gave it the morning dose, it might help, but the pain's already there. But if somebody has osteoarthritis, by their circadian rhythm, their pain is in the afternoon for the most part. Between 1 and 4, it starts up. So we give that dose in the breakfast dose. So see, we're matching up when the body is looking for it and when the medical condition might be seeking it. And Scott, if I can tell the story,
Go ahead.
maybe about, I almost gave this up. And meaning it's expensive, sometimes I worry about compliance because you might forget your dinner dose. Some of you might have had that happen. People are pretty good at taking vitamins in the morning. But if you forget the dinner dose, then you might have 2 or 3 packets left in a couple of days and you have to catch up. So I kind of rethought it. And also from Scott's standpoint, it's expensive to do it. More packets cost money, bigger rolls, a bigger shipment, more time on the machines. So it's an expensive commitment. So 5 years ago, one night when I was kind of doing some major modifications to the program, and I was considering just abandoning chrononutrition and chronobiology or chronodosing. And I was reading this book on chrononutrition, and it was in relation to pharmacy. And so you know that about, I should know the exact time, almost 38 years ago, my daughter Stephanie was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia and given 3 months to live. Devastating to us. And she is alive today, I'll tell you that, praise God. We took her down to Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. We live in Santa Barbara, about 100 miles north. And while she was there undergoing various chemotherapies and radiation to the base of the brain and intrathecal injections of vincristine, a particular drug protocol kind of came out of St. Jude's in Memphis of this current mixture that they're using about 60% of it today, here, 40 years later, that saved her. 49 children were in the hospital at the time and 48 died, and Stephanie did not. So tell me God's not in this. So now let me bring you back to 5 years. 5 years ago. So I'm reading this book about this hospital in Montreal that is looking at 5-mercaptopurine pyranethol, one of the drugs used for other cancers in addition to leukemia. And they found out that in looking at about 10 or 15 years of usage and why some children survived and some did not, they found out that you had a 300-fold chance of survival if you took the medication at 6 p.m. or later. So shivers went up and down my spine. I went running into my wife and I said, Karen, do you remember when you gave Stephanie her medication? And she said, well, I always gave it to her at. It was after the dinner dose because she would be vomiting in the morning. And so it's just luck. Nobody told us. I mean, it was God. You know, I mean, it was not. So the fact that it worked, she's alive today, and when these guys are looking at it, and now they are doing that same dosage adjusting for children, recommending that particular drug for acute lymphocytic leukemia begin at that time. And I think there's some cardio meds and some blood pressure meds that are now moving toward a dinner dose because the threat of stroke and cardiovascular events are actually higher between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning. So there you go. There's your circadian rhythm, even for bad adverse events.
So I think we'll keep the chrono dosing if it's okay with you. Let's talk about some of our differentiators, and then we'll go back to some of the supplements if we have time. Let's talk about our Bioactive filler. That's a big deal, and it's something I know you're extremely proud that you created and that we do.
Okay. Sarah, can you give me that bottle of water?
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, that's not what I want to do.
Oh.
That was thoughtful. If you look at this as a capsule, a two-piece gelatin capsule, it was being so nice. And you would look in here and you'd say, if this much water were the active ingredient in that capsule, which it generally is in a nutraceutical, in a pharmaceutical, it's actually the reverse. If you see a 100 milligram tablet, often it's only 10 to 2 milligrams of active. And what do they call the rest of the pill?
Filler.
Filler, right. Well, that filler is usually made up of something inactive. It's the last 15 to 19%, some formulas maybe 10, others 20, that makes the pill look pharmaceutically elegant, we call it. Because you wouldn't want something that would have this much in it, right? You'd think you got cheated. So they put in an inactive ingredient, harmful vegetable stearate, usually magnesium stearate, that doesn't do any good, but it doesn't do any harm. So that always bothered me. So we decided at ID Life to actually add a bioactive filler. So that last 15%, and it varies just a little bit by formula because it depends on how much active we have in there, is a bioactive filler made up of curcumin, EGCG, which is epigallocatechin gallate from green tea.
That'll be on the test.
We have glucosinolates that come from broccoli and quercetin that comes from apples or onions. Wonderful anti-inflammatories, wonderful antioxidants that we all need. And speaking of anti-inflammatories, anything we can do to beat down inflammation in today's market, in our bodies today, and our food intake is of value. So, excuse me. So that's what our bioactive filler is. So when you talk, you can just grab a bottle of water and say, there's the active ingredients, the rest of it is really good stuff. It's not like that.
All right, that's powerful, guys. It really is. It's nice. It's just...
To my knowledge, nobody else is doing that. Yeah.
It just makes us different. Now let's talk about something else that's very important. What does the term pharmaceutical grade nutrition mean? I know we throw that around and you hear it said, but what does it really mean, especially in regards to how ID Life looks at it?
Well, pharmaceutical grade is kind of a wide open terminology. I think it's kicked around to just as a marketing buzzword. But it's really the way you control your raw ingredients. Where you source them, how you test them. Mark and Scott had a tour of our facility, our main facility last week. and we're able to see the quality control about how ingredients are quarantined, tested rigorously, and not used unless they fulfill, meet our standards of requirements.
Let me jump in on that just for a second. And guys, we do reject raw materials. And so you need to understand that. There have been some times that Mark and I were sweating it pretty close. We had some stuff that we had to be sent back. And, you guys are ordering this stuff, tens of thousands at a time. And, we do reject things that aren't right. I mean, it really does. It's like, oh, they just say that. No. But truckloads of stuff goes back if it's not right, and that you need to know that.
One good example was that last year when I walked in the lab to see what's new in the manufacturer we use, they had this new piece of equipment that cost them like $300,000. And there's only 2 of them at the time being used in the country. And they had, I walked over to the operator and I saw these spikes. They were testing ginseng. And we don't use, we don't use ginseng because it interacts with a lot of drugs. So I kind of keep it out of the formulas, even though it's a good ingredient for stress and it's a good adaptogen. They were looking at it and they said, well, this has an extraordinary level of pesticides in it. We couldn't figure out why the ginseng cost had gone down over the last couple of years. It's because the yield had gone up. The ginseng comes from a root, most of it, and the roots were bigger, so they were able to sell it cheaper. But they found out it was loaded with pesticides. And the thing that scared me is that a year before, they wouldn't have been able to detect this. So I walked out of there as a pharmacist, both proud and concerned. Proud that they were, our company and our people, my customers, were protected. But afraid for the rest of the country, because you'd be buying things at Walmart or CVS or who knows where, anywhere, even legitimately, people that thought they were sourcing the ingredients in a careful manner, in a professional manner, and weren't really, didn't have the testing ability that really created the pharmaceutical grade. So I'm hoping that the others, many of the others, because there's hundreds of manufacturers out there, that they were able to find this out and be able to, say, protect the whole country from this, but just know that with our ingredients, my pharmacy background, a little bit of manufacturing background, sourcing, and also a product formulator, that we know how to at least go through the rigors of testing to make sure you're getting a pure product.
And it's important, and it is another differentiator that makes us different than someone else. And we do triple testing on everything. So before, mixing, and after. So when you guys get it, it's right 100% of the time, and it's impressive way to do that. And myself personally, being able to be involved in the purchasing of these items, for the first time, I'm actually a legitimate drug dealer. On the phone, talking kilos.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, guys, you laugh, it is funny, but some of this stuff is $25,000 a kilo. I think you could buy illegal drugs for less money than that. I don't know, just saying.
No, it is. For instance, in our B12 in our product, it's a combination of cyanocobalamin, which is used by 99% of manufacturers. But we also use a great portion of it is methylcobalamin. Now, cyanocobalamin costs about $200 a kilo. Methylcobalamin is $15,000 a kilo.
Wow.
So that's some of the differences. But you look out there, if you see regular B12 in the vitamins, then it's the cheaper grade.
All right, let's keep moving. Let's cover Logan. We got time for one more. Logan brought up probiotics. Now, a lot of people don't even know what those are. It was introduced to me a number of years ago and made a significant difference in how I feel personally. Let's talk about our probiotic, but also tell them what probiotics do.
Well, probiotics are healthy bacteria in your system that you're born with. And after that, it's all downhill. You get your mother's probiotics, the healthy bacteria in your intestine, and then through your lifetime of abuse, just abusing it, not necessarily chemical abuse, but of eating the wrong food, eating processed food, eating food that is not good prebiotic. And a good prebiotic I just had here last night at this deli next door. They had a pickle bar that I ate a lot of sauerkraut. And that is a wonderful probiotic, or prebiotic, that feeds the good bacteria in your system. So several years ago, the nutrition industry started to actually give you probiotics, and you would see it in yogurt and things like that, which would be acidophilus, and everybody's known about that. Or lactobacillus acidophilus, and then there's a lot of different lactobacillus in addition to acidophilus. And then there's a bifidobacterium segment that is very healthy too. So you're not getting all those things added to your Dannon yogurt, and you're not getting it from, you're not eating chicory tea, or you're not drinking chicory tea, or eating sauerkraut, so you're not getting it kind of in your diet. So it's really necessary to support your immune system with the probiotic. And we actually have 10 healthy strains, not the 2 or 3 or 4 that you'll find out there. And also know that 99.9% of the other products are destroyed to the level of about delivering 5% of the probiotic stated to the intestine where it's needed. Because probiotics are destroyed by stomach acid. So when you take a regular capsule that doesn't have acid resistance, you hear about taking enteric-coated tablets for aspirin, to get those through the stomach for a different reason, so it doesn't expose the stomach to the acetylsalicylic acid. But the probiotics are absorbed through the intestine. If they don't get there, then you're losing the value. So our formula is we've created an acid-resistant bolus that is inside the capsule that moves through the system, and by the time it gets to the intestine, it's delivering about 40% of the active ingredient, and that's like unheard of. So we're so proud of that. So even though you're getting, say, the 5 billion is the count of healthy bacteria in our probiotic formula, it's 40% of it's getting there. You're probably thinking 100% of it. But if you're taking somebody else's, 4 or 5% is what's actually delivered. Wow. And by the way, the probiotic, excuse me. I've been talking, I know I'm over time. I've had a lot of questions about bone health and about our bone formula. A lot of it, yeah. And so I have a lot of reasons why that's good, but one very big reason that every nutrient, but particularly calcium, magnesium, and those things that kind of form the bone matrix are best absorbed through the intestine with healthy probiotics or healthy bacteria. So probiotics actually help in bone health as well. So it's real important. Right, am I done? Everyone, call Sullivan.